If we don't fix this disaster in 2 hours, we are done. Not just here, but everywhere. CEO Carl Blake said to his engineers in front of his German investors, sweat beading on his forehead as he stared at the $2 million prototype engine that had been their company's nightmare for 6 weeks straight. Those words cut through the Tech Vanguard Industries conference room like a knife. The tension was so thick, you could slice it with a razor blade. Manager Vera Taylor stormed through the glass doors, her heels clicking against the polished floor like gunshots. Her voice sliced through the silence as she barked her orders. "Where's that mechanic? Get Hakim up here now." The room buzzed with uncomfortable energy as every executive, every investor, every MIT graduate turned their attention toward the elevator doors. They were waiting for their last resort, a man they'd never bothered to notice before. Hakim James stepped into the conference room, wearing oil-stained coveralls that told the story of honest work. Every eye in the room locked onto him instantly. He could feel the weight of their stares, the mixture of desperation and doubt radiating from these powerful people who suddenly needed him more than they wanted to admit. But Vera Taylor wasn't done humiliating him. Her voice dripped with condescension as she gestured toward the silent engine. "Our MIT boys can't fix this, so maybe our little grease monkey can work some magic." The words hit Hakim like physical blows, but he kept his expression steady. He'd heard worse. He'd survived worse. Then Vera delivered her final insult with a smirk that would haunt her for the rest of her career. "Tell you what, Hakim, fix this engine in 2 hours, and I'll marry you. Fail, and you're permanently fired." Hakim's jaw tightened as he stared at the engine, then back at Vera's smirking face. 50,000 viewers were watching this corporate crisis unfold in real time through the company's live stream, and they were about to witness something extraordinary. If you want to see how this incredible story unfolds, and you believe in justice, type justice and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And if you want to see justice served in the most satisfying way possible, make sure to subscribe because this story is about to get intense. 25 years earlier, in a cramped garage on Detroit's east side, a young Hakim James spent every afternoon after school with his grandfather Samuel. Samuel James ran the most respected auto shop in the city, a place where mechanics from across Detroit came to learn from the master. While neighbors saw just another black kid getting his hands dirty with motor oil, Samuel was training an engineering prodigy. "Engines got souls, boy," Samuel would whisper as he guided Hakim's small hands across cylinder heads and crankshafts. "You don't just fix them with tools, you listen to their heartbeat, feel their pain, understand their language." Samuel taught Hakim to hear what others couldn't. The subtle whisper of a bearing about to fail. The irregular rhythm of a timing chain stretched beyond repair. The angry growl of an engine fighting against poor maintenance. While other kids played video games, Hakim learned to speak the secret language of machines. But tragedy struck when Hakim turned 18. His mother fell ill with cancer, and medical bills devoured their savings faster than a hungry engine burns fuel. Hakim made the hardest decision of his life. He enrolled in community college for engineering, instead of pursuing his dream of attending a prestigious university. He couldn't afford the luxury of four-year dreams when his family needed him. Every morning, Hakim attended classes. Every afternoon, he worked to pay the bills. Every evening, he studied while sitting beside his mother's hospital bed. His professors recognized his brilliance immediately. This young man understood engineering concepts that stumped students from wealthy families. But Hakim graduated quietly, without fanfare, carrying both a degree and the practical wisdom his grandfather had given him. At Tech Vanguard Industries, Hakim made a conscious choice that would define his career for years. He deliberately stayed in the shadows, having learned early that being too visible as a smart black man often brought trouble. His coworkers saw only the quiet mechanic who kept their equipment running flawlessly. They never knew about his engineering degree. They never suspected that he understood their complex systems better than they did. But Hakim possessed something those MIT graduates lacked: intuitive mechanical intelligence combined with formal engineering knowledge. He could diagnose problems others couldn't see, understanding the marriage between old-school craftsmanship and cutting-edge technology. His grandfather's wisdom lived in his hands, while his education lived in his mind. Meanwhile, Vera Taylor had built her entire career on a foundation of cruelty. She climbed the corporate ladder by crushing subordinates, especially targeting employees of color, who she saw as threats to her authority. Her management style was a toxic cocktail of corporate buzzwords mixed with subtle racism that left her victims unable to prove what everyone could feel. Vera questioned Hakeem's competence at every turn. She assigned him the worst shifts: weekends, holidays, overnight emergencies that kept him away from his family. When Hakeem submitted advancement requests, she blocked them with bureaucratic excuses that sounded professional but felt personal. "Some people are just meant for manual labor," she'd tell other managers during closed-door meetings, her coded language crystal clear to everyone who heard it. She particularly resented Hakeem's quiet confidence and the genuine respect he earned from senior technicians who recognized his skill. To Vera, a black man who didn't know his place threatened her carefully constructed hierarchy. She needed people beneath her to stay beneath her, and Hakeem's obvious intelligence made her deeply uncomfortable. The engine crisis presented Vera with what she thought was the perfect opportunity. With German investors watching and her own job threatened by 6 weeks of humiliating failure, she could sacrifice Hakeem as a scapegoat while maintaining her authority. Her public humiliation tactic was designed to break him completely. Either he'd fail spectacularly, and she could blame the company's problems on incompetent staff, or he'd somehow succeed, and she could claim credit for motivating him to perform. But Vera Taylor had no idea she was about to make the biggest mistake of her career. She thought she was humiliating a simple mechanic. She had no clue she was challenging a man who carried the mechanical wisdom of Detroit's greatest teachers and the engineering knowledge of formal education. If you're enjoying this incredible story of hidden talent and workplace justice, smash that subscribe button, because what happens next will blow your mind. But here's my question for you. Have you ever had to hide your true abilities to avoid making others uncomfortable? Let me know in the comments below. The prototype engine sitting silent in that conference room represented more than just revolutionary technology. It was the graveyard of dreams, the crusher of careers, the mechanical monster that had turned Tech Vanguard Industries into a house of broken promises. This masterpiece of engineering combined German precision manufacturing with cutting-edge American AI programming. But for 6 agonizing weeks, it had been nothing more than a $50 million paperweight, mocking everyone who dared approach it. The MIT graduates had poured their hearts and souls into this mechanical puzzle, working 18-hour days until their eyes burned and their hands trembled from exhaustion. Software patches that rewrote thousands of lines of code while they survived on nothing but coffee and desperation. Hardware replacements that cost more than most people's houses, installed with the kind of careful precision that comes from knowing your career hangs in the balance. Complete system overhauls that required teams of specialists working around the clock, their marriages straining, their children asking why daddy never came home anymore. Nothing worked. The engine would roar to life with the promise of redemption, run for a few precious minutes that filled everyone with hope, then shut down with violent shaking that rattled windows and shattered the confidence of brilliant minds who'd never failed at anything in their lives. Klaus Weber stood beside the machine like a man watching his life's work crumble. The weight of failure crushed his shoulders as investors back in Germany questioned every decision he'd ever made. His accent was thick with the kind of frustration that comes from watching dreams die slowly. This engine powers our new industrial line. Without it functioning, the entire $50 million contract dies. $50 million hanging by a thread. 6 weeks of sleepless nights and broken promises. The brightest minds from MIT reduced to helpless spectators watching their reputations dissolve. The live stream audience, now swelling past 60,000 viewers, watched as Hakeem approached the mechanical beast that had destroyed careers and shattered the confidence of men who'd built their identities on being the smartest people in any room. Vera's mocking words echoed through the conference room like a death sentence designed to crush whatever dignity Hakim had left. 2 hours, grease monkey. Tick-tock. The cruelty in her voice was designed to break him, to strip away any confidence he might have possessed, to remind everyone in that room, including himself, exactly where he stood in their hierarchy. But as those words hit him like physical blows, something deeper stirred in Hakim's chest. The memory of his grandfather's weathered hands guiding him through his first engine repair. The pride in Samuel's eyes when young Hakim diagnosed a problem that had stumped grown men. The quiet dignity his mother had shown even as cancer ravaged her body and medical bills destroyed their savings. Hakim ignored the cameras pointing at him like accusatory fingers. He ignored the crowd of executives holding their breath, waiting for his public humiliation. He ignored the crushing weight of expectation and the burning sting of racial humiliation. Instead, he placed his weathered hands that carried the wisdom of Detroit's greatest mechanical mind, on the engine casing and closed his eyes, doing exactly what his grandfather Samuel had taught him decades ago in that cramped garage where love and knowledge had been passed down like sacred scripture. He listened with his heart, not just his ears. The sound pattern was wrong in a way that spoke to his soul. Not broken parts screaming in mechanical agony. Not bad code creating digital chaos. Something deeper was happening inside this machine. Something that transcended the boundaries between hardware and software. Something that required the kind of intuitive understanding that couldn't be taught in textbooks or learned in laboratories. While the MIT graduates had focused on complex solutions involving quantum algorithms and nano-precision adjustments, the kind of intellectual solutions that made them feel smart, Hakim heard what they completely missed because they'd never learned to listen with their hearts. The German components were vibrating at frequencies that directly conflicted with the American AI systems, like two different languages trying to sing the same song. The engine wasn't broken. It was literally fighting itself, dying from internal conflict. European and American engineering philosophies were clashing in mechanical harmony, creating a war between two different approaches to perfection that was tearing the machine apart from the inside. After 90 minutes of careful listening and gentle testing, 90 minutes where his entire future hung in the balance, while Vera's mocking laughter echoed in his memory, Hakim opened his eyes with the quiet confidence of a man who'd found truth in chaos. His voice was steady as he announced, "I need a harmonic dampener." The MIT graduates exchanged confused glances like students who'd missed the most important lecture of their lives. Their expensive educations had never taught them that sometimes the most complex problems required the simplest solutions. That sometimes brilliance looked like intuition rather than equations. Vera laughed harshly, her voice cutting through the room like broken glass designed to draw blood. "A what? Making up words now?" The cruelty in her tone was meant to destroy whatever confidence Hakim had built. To remind everyone that he was just a mechanic playing in a world that belonged to people with better pedigrees. But Klaus Weber's eyes widened with the sudden recognition that comes from meeting a kindred spirit. German engineers understood harmonic resonance intimately. It was woven into their DNA, fundamental to their manufacturing philosophy. The fact that this quiet mechanic had diagnosed a harmonic problem in 90 minutes, while MIT graduates missed it for 6 weeks, spoke to a depth of understanding that transcended formal education. Hakim walked to the supply room with the steady gait of a man who'd found his purpose, returning with a simple vibration dampener, a $50 part that looked completely insignificant compared to the $2 million engine, like a band-aid for a heart attack. But as he installed it with the practiced precision that came from years of hiding his brilliance, he explained his diagnosis in terms that made the German investors nod with the respect reserved for true masters. The German metal expands differently than American specifications expect. The AI keeps overcorrecting for vibrations that aren't actually problems. This dampener creates the buffer zone both systems need to work in harmony. The room held its collective breath as Hakim powered up the engine, 60,000 livestream viewers, watching a moment that would either vindicate a lifetime of hidden brilliance or destroy a man whose only crime was believing he belonged in a room full of people who'd never wanted him there. For a moment that felt like eternity, silence stretched like a tightrope across the conference room. Everyone's future balanced on the edge of mechanical possibility. Then the engine hummed to life, smooth, steady, powerful, singing with the voice of perfect mechanical harmony. No shaking, no shutdowns, just the sound of success that filled the room with something none of them had felt in 6 weeks. Hope restored, dreams reborn, careers saved by the hands of a man they'd almost destroyed. The German investors erupted in amazed applause that carried the weight of professional salvation. Klaus Weber stood up and started clapping with tears of relief streaming down his face, his expression showing genuine admiration for the simple brilliance that had saved them all. The live-stream chat exploded with viewers sharing the moment globally. Hashtags like Engine Genius and Hidden Talent began trending across social media platforms as people around the world witnessed the triumph of hidden brilliance over institutional blindness. 6 weeks of expert failure solved in 90 minutes by intuitive genius. A $50 part and the wisdom of a Detroit grandfather saving a $50 million contract. But while celebration filled the room like sunrise after the longest night, Vera Taylor stood frozen like a statue of her own cruelty. Her face cycled through shock, anger, and dawning horror as she realized what she'd unleashed. She'd meant to humiliate Hakim, to break him publicly and maintain her authority through the destruction of his dignity. Instead, she'd given him the stage to showcase talents that made her look small, petty, and utterly disposable in comparison. The woman who'd built her career on crushing others had just handed her victim the weapon of his own vindication. If you want to see Vera get exactly what she deserves for her toxic behavior, make sure you subscribe because this story is about to take a turn that will restore your faith in workplace justice and the power of hidden brilliance to triumph over institutional cruelty. But tell me this, have you ever solved a problem that stumped people with more formal education than you? Share your story in the comments below, because sometimes the most powerful solutions come from the most unexpected places. The moment that engine hummed to life, everything changed in that conference room. Klaus Weber approached Hakim with genuine respect, radiating from every step. His voice carried admiration that couldn't be faked. That was brilliant engineering. Where did you study? When Hakim quietly mentioned community college, Weber shook his head with the wisdom of someone who understood true talent. Formal education teaches theory. You understand engines' souls. Those words hit Hakim like lightning. Here was a German engineering expert, someone whose opinion carried weight across international markets, recognizing what Vera Taylor had been too blind to see. Samuel's teachings hadn't just made Hakim a good mechanic, they'd made him a mechanical genius. Meanwhile, CEO Carl Blake watched something extraordinary unfold on his phone screen. The viral moment was exploding across social media platforms like digital wildfire. Hashtag Engine Genius and hashtag Hidden Talent were trending worldwide. Videos of Hakim's triumph were being shared millions of times across Twitter, LinkedIn, and TikTok. The positive publicity was invaluable. Tech Vanguard Industries was suddenly being praised as a company that recognized real talent. But more importantly, Carl Blake recognized he'd nearly lost exceptional talent to managerial prejudice. A $50 part and 90 minutes of intuitive brilliance had saved a $50 million contract. How many other talented employees were being wasted because managers like Vera couldn't see past their own biases? While celebration filled one side of the room, Vera Taylor's world crumbled publicly on the other side. Her cruel joke about marriage had become a symbol of workplace racism, broadcast to thousands of viewers. The livestream audience was demanding justice, with comments flooding in faster than anyone could read them. Company board members were already calling emergency meetings. Her authority evaporated like morning mist as employees who'd suffered under her management began sharing their own stories of discriminatory behavior. The woman who'd built her career on crushing others was about to be crushed by the weight of her own actions. Throughout the chaos, Hakim maintained quiet dignity that spoke louder than any celebration could. but his confidence had transformed completely. No more hiding his intelligence behind oil-stained coveralls. No more downplaying his contributions to avoid making others uncomfortable. The respect in Klaus Weber's eyes reminded him of the pride his grandfather Samuel used to show when Hakim mastered a difficult repair. Samuel would have loved this moment, watching his grandson finally receive the recognition his talents deserved. 3 months later, the transformation was complete. Senior engineer Hakim James now led Tech Vanguard's new Harmonic Systems division from a corner office that overlooked the same factory floor where he'd once worked in shadows. His salary had tripled, but more importantly, his innovations were saving the company millions of dollars. The German partnership flourished under his technical leadership, with Klaus Weber specifically trusting Hakim's involvement in every future project. The engine he'd fixed in 90 minutes now powered a revolutionary manufacturing line that generated profits beyond anyone's expectations. Major industrial companies were lining up to license Hakim's harmonic dampening technology. The quiet mechanic had become the company's most valuable asset. Vera Taylor's fall from grace was equally dramatic. She underwent mandatory diversity training before accepting a lower-level position in a different department. A humbling experience that served as a cautionary tale about the cost of underestimating talent based on prejudice. Her public humiliation became required viewing in corporate sensitivity training programs across the country. But the real victory was the broader change Hakim's story inspired. Tech Vanguard implemented new policies that recognized skills over credentials, promoting several overlooked employees who possessed practical expertise that formal education couldn't teach. Maintenance workers with engineering insights were moved to design teams. Technicians with innovation ideas were given research budgets. The company discovered a goldmine of talent that had been hiding in plain sight. Hakim's story spread far beyond Tech Vanguard's walls, inspiring workers nationwide to showcase their hidden talents instead of keeping them buried. Community colleges reported increased enrollment from working adults who realized their practical experience combined with formal education could open doors they'd never imagined. Standing in his new office, Hakim kept a framed photo of grandfather Samuel on his mahogany desk. The old man's weathered hands and wise smile reminded him daily of where his journey began. Samuel's words echoed through his mind every morning. "Engines got souls, boy. And so do the people who understand them." The quiet mechanic had found his voice, and the corporate world would never underestimate hidden genius again. Sometimes the most valuable solutions came from the most unexpected places. And the greatest mistake anyone could make was assuming they knew someone's worth by their appearance. That $50 part Hakim installed didn't just fix an engine. It fixed a broken system that judged people by their coveralls instead of their capabilities. And in a world where talent often goes unrecognized, Hakim James proved that brilliance can't be hidden forever. If this story of hidden talent and workplace justice inspired you, make sure you subscribe for more incredible true stories that will restore your faith in the power of perseverance and the triumph of merit over prejudice. Now I want to hear from you. What hidden talents do you possess that others might be overlooking? Share your story in the comments below. You never know who might need to hear it.